quickly and then just follow my lead. Okay. All right. Welcome, Anastasia.
Correct.
Have I pronounced it correctly? Okay, welcome to the Parental Alienation Omnibus. Will you please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and what you do?
I grew up in Ukraine, and I was an alienated child from Ukraine. And now I live in the United States, and I do advocacy work in both Ukraine and the United States.
Wonderful. Okay. So how is parental alienation regarded and handled in the Ukraine and in the States where you are, from your experience? Do people know about it? Is there proper legislation? Is it properly defined from a psychological point of view? How is the development?
Well, my personal experience was from over 30 plus years ago. And unfortunately, just knowing my friends, and in here behind me is this international poster we created. On the right-hand side, there is an organization called Kids Hugs, led by a friend of mine, Natalia Greenberg Kugai. And just knowing what situation is there right now, I can tell you that nothing has changed over 30 plus years, unfortunately.
Really? In the Ukraine?
Yes. A lot of work still needs to be done, but we're very close to actually passing the shared parenting law there.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. Yeah, very little has changed. Do you have a story, your personal story that you'd like to share with us? Or another story, perhaps?
So the alienator in my personal case was my maternal grandfather. And when parents started divorcing, he alienated me against my mom mildly. So I didn't have a relationship my whole life with her, just recently reconnected. And then he alienated me against my dad severely. And I didn't have any contact with my dad for 30 plus years.
Wow.
To the point of it was very difficult to even reconnect, because that childhood stress, that fight or flight reaction came hunting me. Even I was already in my 40s. So what I want to tell, it doesn't matter how old is alienated child is, they can be in their 60s. You know, they're still under that stress, childhood stress of the loyalty conflict.
Yes.
That's why they need a helping hand. It was almost impossible for me to reconnect with my alienated parents without help of my husband, for example, and advocacy work of others who are doing advocacy work and awareness work.
Yes, yes. So if I'm understanding correctly, you were alienated as a child and you only managed to reunite with both your parents as an adult.
Right, thanks to the advocacy work, like I said, and
yes.
Awareness. Otherwise, I would not be able to connect the dots. I would not be able to see hundreds and hundreds of cookie cutter stories, copy and paste stories, because I felt my whole life that I am just, my story is unique. It was my decision to reject my parents, especially my dad.
Your case is interesting for me because it's something we rarely hear about, is when alienated children realize as adults what have been going on. And we know that there's a lot of deep emotional stuff that you have to deal with, apart from realizing that there's an alienator that you're actually very close to and bonded with. Also the guilt and all sorts of things that come up when you realize, when you get to the point where you realize, oh, this has been going on all my life. Would you like to tell us more about that?
It's a very difficult journey, I would say. First, that child is in complete denial that alienation even exists, and you know, they still harbor a lot of bottled up anger toward that targeted parent, and to the point that they don't want to even talk about them. They would reject anybody who would even try to talk to them about their targeted parent or unfavored parent, right? So in my case, I got so basically, I couldn't bear stress anymore of my husband and people, my friends asking me, oh, where's your dad? Oh, you know, are they alive, your parents and all? So I actually, unfortunately, and this is the reason I'm coming up with this, because it's what these alienated kids do. They so don't want to even talk about those unfavored parents because of the loyalty conflict from their childhood, that they, what I did, I even told people my dad got cancer and died.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And when people hear that, they start crying because how much they love their kids and how much their kids reject them. Now, when I became an alienated mother myself, because 50% of these alienated kids, by statistics, they lose their own child or they themselves become an alienator because they were taught that it's okay to erase a parent.
Yes.
So then I had to face a situation when my husband, for example, asked, what did you do so that your daughter rejects you? And I'm like, what did my father do? And the answer is nothing.
Yes.
Why would I reject him my whole life and hate him so much for no reason? So, and I confronted my side of the family who alienated, and I said, why did you call my dad the former my whole life? And they said, oh, it was you who hated him when you were 10 years old. It was you who destroyed his birthday presents. It was you who yelled and screamed at him that you never want to see him again your whole life.
Wow.
Little did I know that later on in life, it causes these alienated kids a whole range of negative healthcare consequences,
Yes.
like anxiety, depression, poor life choices, very high risk of their own kids being alienated from them, or they start just their interpersonal relationships change to the point that they go like, what happened? Who am I? Why is it all happening to me? And you feel like you're alone and isolated. Yet when you start learning about parental alienation, it all comes together. Now I live in the United States. I highly recommend Dr. Craig Childress YouTube lecture. If you just Google parental alienation or treatment of parental alienation, it's just like he put a camera in my house. So in the United States now, on this international poster behind me on the right-hand side, which is, I think your side is left, I think. Is it right or left? I don't know. but it's called Chicago United Parents, is now my organization in the United States. And this Sunday, we're going to do a rally in front of our courthouse. We're trying to educate our courts about the problem and so that they address it better.
I love the poster. It's a beautiful poster. Wonderful design.
Thank you for the designers of this.
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing that you said about when you confronted the alienators in your family, that they basically denied it. They basically blamed it on you.
Yes.
And how does one respond to that?
Because see, a lot of these alienators, they say, oh, it's the child who doesn't want to see you, unfavored parent. It's the child who is making the decision. This is the adultification right there. It's a psychological child abuse. The child's not supposed to decide which parent to choose or whether to choose a parent at all.
They can't actually, they don't actually intuitively want to ever make that decision. Children love both their parents. They don't ever want to choose.
Exactly. All children want, and I can tell you from the alienated child perspective, is for parents to be friendly with each other, is for parents to be nice to each other. For example, I'll just give you one recent example. I remarried. When I remarried, my husband happened to be divorced with his ex-wife, and they had 3 children. And the youngest was kind of affected still by the divorce and by the parents fighting in court. And unfortunately, in the United States, the court proceedings are long, to contain contention and contentious. Sorry, I'm not an English native speaker.
Yeah.
And stressful, expensive. So kids are being caught in the middle, right?
Yes.
So, and even though his youngest child was already 30 years old, you could still see that he was affected. He couldn't keep up with his relationships. He had some substance abuse problems, and when I insisted that for the Thanksgiving dinner, let you and your kids and your ex-wife and me and your ex-wife's significant other, if any, all come together to the dinner table and celebrate Thanksgiving and be civil to each other and be friendly to each other. And guess what? We did that. And it worked like magic. His younger son, only a year ago, already married and expecting his first child, and has zero problems that he used to have.
Yeah, it's very important how we treat each other, how we behave towards each other. Hey?
Absolutely.
It has a huge impact on the children. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to add. When people ask, let's say you are a targeted parent, or you are the parent whom your child rejects, right? And the children usually turn seemingly overnight from a loving and great kid to this basically almost abusive and verbally usually, and just rejecting, or just they shut down on you, they don't reply, nothing. So, and when a parent goes around and tries to get support and understanding, people usually say, oh, it's two sides to the story. So you and your ex-husband or whatever, or you and your ex-wife must be, like it's two people who are at fault here. Well, yes. This is the most common misconception, because it's enough to have only one such alienator who just obsessively is telling his or her a false narrative, and the kids like soak it in like that, very, very easily. And so the thing is, what to understand, even the social workers, the police departments, the courts, what they need to understand is that you don't need to look at both parents, who's accusing whom of parental alienation or of physical abuse or of any other kinds of abuse. Don't look at the two parents. Look at the child only.
Yes.
Because the science says that abused children don't reject the abuser. They actually cling to the abuse. It's called the Stockholm syndrome. It's called all kinds of, like you see all these examples in literature. So if you do see a child who say this parent is all good and this is all bad, and they reject this parent, so then you as a scientist or public officer have to see that, have to immediately conclude that with high probability, like 90-something%, the parent the child is rejecting is probably the healthier parent, and it's the other one who psychologically abused the child. So
that is very true, and thank you for explaining it so nicely, so properly, because that's the crux of the matter for me often, because we take everything at face value and we focus on how the child is behaving, and we tend to take it personally. And people who view this from the outside say, like the things like you said, well, you must have done something, or what did you do? Or, I haven't heard the other side of the story. And it's really that simple, because the moment that the child is behaving in an unnatural way, in an counterintuitive manner, then the red flags should go on, because it's because of alienation.
Correct.
And there's really another cause of it.
Yeah. Normally all children have healthy attachment system. They are attached both naturally to both of their parents. And if you see a disruption of that attachment system toward one parent, you got to assume that the other is the one who's doing it. And that's child abuse, because, you know, I can tell you from my own experience how much grief it caused me my whole life. People commit suicide, and not just, you know, not just these alienated kids, but also the targeted parents. Statistic says that 40% contemplate suicide, and 40% is a huge number statistically.
Yes.
During their first year, when the kids started rejecting them for no
That's
reason
very
like
high.
this, and they don't
Can you,
understand that.
yeah. Can you share with us how it feels for you now, being of your age and having reconnected with your parents? How is your relationship with your parents? Have you managed to bond well? Have you managed to make good memories? What is it like for you now?
It's difficult. They live in a different country now, because see what alienated kids do? They try to move away as far as possible.
Okay.
Across the ocean sometimes, like I did,
Mm-hmm.
just to avoid that loyalty conflict, and to not feel that stress. So it's difficult now, because I almost don't know those people, my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel sadness that I lost so much time, and I feel sadness that I kept my children away from grandparents my whole life. It's very, very sad. Now, I did invite my mom to my wedding with this new husband, and we had a great relationship. Again, I want to emphasize that it's very important, the support system and the help of somebody else. Like, for example, my current husband, it comes from a good, friendly family in general. Like, his mom and dad were together, their children knew their grandparents and so forth. So my husband was the one who insisted that I would invite my mom to my wedding, because I was resisting that. And then I said, okay, fine. You know, you invite, you do deal with it. No, when she came, everything was fine. And I saw that she's not what I believed about her my whole life, because what I believed about her is what I heard when I was 10 years old and 11 and 13, that she was childish, impractical, and could not take care of me. So one of those three things that alienated kids believe about their unfavored parent is that parent is either unloving, unsafe, or unavailable.
Yes.
So, and it's important for the support system to show the opposite to these kids, no matter what age they are, that their parent is loving, available, and safe. And my parents are. So I did connect also, and heard from my dad's stepdaughter, and she said every time he was in church all these years, he would put a candle for your health and he would cry. Yet when he tried to find me in the United States and email me, I would feel this anger, and I would just ignore his emails. It's a tremendous problem, and I think much more people are affected by it. They just embarrassed maybe to talk about it, but there's nothing to be embarrassed about. I want to remove that stigma. People do need to talk more about it, because if social workers, school workers, neighbors, and friends spotted the alienating behaviors of one person, it could be a relative, not necessarily a parent, then when it gets exposed, when that behavior gets exposed, guess what? It ceases to exist.
Yes, that's the thing. It's the secrets
Yes.
and covering things up that enables it to happen, and that keeps it, perpetuates the evil of it.
Exactly. That's why I now do awareness work, and so happy to be a part of the movement.
That's wonderful, and you speak from your own experience, so it's beautiful to work with people who really, you've been there yourself. Thanks. Tell me, as a last question, what is the best advice that you would give somebody who finds themselves being alienated? A parent who realizes that they're being alienated from a child, or a child who realizes that they're being alienated?
If a parent who realized that they were alienated from a child, the best thing I would advise to that parent is join the movement. and start helping others realizing, hey, you know, this is parental alienation, is a child abuse, and it's abuse, and it's also domestic violence abuse by proxy. It's a form of the intimate terrorism against the other former, let's say, intimate partner. Now, I would not advise parents to talk about their exes, actually, ex-husband or ex-wife, because if your child actually hears that, remember, they still love that other parent, and we're trying to put the children first.
Yes.
So alienated kids, yes, they reject you, but they don't want you to hear anything, even though you're speaking the truth, but they don't want to hear it. So don't basically speak the truth about their other parent. Just say, both of your parents love you. Both of your parents want to help you. And how can I help you? Just that's what you ask your alienated child. How can I help you? The more often you provide some help, the better. What I did when my son did not talk to me for 2 years, he was mildly alienated, but I set up a little like a little help that would go to him every month, whatever I could, like a little money, you know, just because he was already in his 20s. So that's like helping start his own life, right? Yes. Adult life. And the idea is that little drop of love, little drop of help from the targeted parent to your child matters a lot, because my son did come back to me.
Yes. Okay.
That's important. Yeah. And another thing for the targeted parent, never give up. Don't send those, you know, drops of love every day, but send them every couple of months. Very loving, very neutral. Do join the movement of awareness so that other people are more aware, and then you get to see your grandchildren, because otherwise you may not be able to.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And for children who realize that they're alienated, reach out to your parent with whom you lost contact, and you'll be lucky if that parent is still alive, because the tragedy happens is when that parent is no longer living, and you have to now live with that guilt and with that with that awful feelings of never being nice to them.
So reach out from parents' side, from children's side. Keep on reaching out.
Absolutely. But use your best friend's help too. Like in my case, my husband, he literally held my hand. He literally wrote a text what to write to my dad in a postcard. And I just copied it because I was unable to do that. I was in agony and crying for like 4 weeks that I could not do it. And I was, remember, already in my 40s. So what would you expect from a teenager or a younger child? So we have to understand that they feel tremendous stress, and that's obviously disproportional to what their targeted parent did, meaning everybody makes mistakes as a normal parent. Every human being does. But for example, you know, like that parent brought me to Hawaii for vacation instead of Caribbean, and that's why I hate them.